the energy harvesting technologies, and particularly I'll touch base on how the classification can be done, particularly from the standpoint view of how the energy can be reharvested, utilized to achieve the sustainable development goals of 2030. And perhaps um, I would like to talk about the foundation, which already is part of so many protocols right now in terms of achieving those goals. Um, so it would be everything about energy and the strategy around how energy can be harvested in the best possible way. So that's the intent of the discussion. I'll put myself on mute. If you have any questions, happy to answer. And we'll take things forward, particularly from the standpoint view of how energy harvesting can be utilized in multiple industries, and particularly where um, dissipation itself is at a large scale, how that can be mitigated, and we make this planet a better place to live. So that's the whole discussion today. So putting myself on mute, have any questions, put in the comment box, we'll look into it. Okay, so we are going to understand an architectural framework of how smart contracts can be developed around the energy harvesting, and particularly from the point of view of the heat dissipation which happens due to the servers, due to the electricity consumption, how it can be reutilized and gets back into the circular economy. So that's the whole understanding of the today's discussion. First of all, we will be trying to classify the data into multiple nodes, and particularly from the standpoint view of verification of the transaction, because when we are trying to understand peer-to-peer network, or we are trying to understand public ledger, private ledger, at any given point of time, wherever the transaction is happening or wherever the information is being um, sent across in real time, it reaches the nodes, there has to be a destination. And that destination itself has to be the verification of the transaction, and that is coded under G06Q20 slash 401. So that is the verification of the transaction, or particularly if I have to rephrase transaction verification, it is communication of the data with the intent of verification. So it can perhaps be looked in that direction also. So that direction also has to be taken into account. Okay. Next is when we are trying to understand, particularly from the standpoint view of the copyrights. Again, uh, when we are doing the smart contracts, we cannot leave behind the copywriting or the copyright aspect of understanding how whatever the energy which is being harvested is getting back, how the royalty would be shared. So perhaps when we are talking about the protocols, so one way of understanding the protocols is intellectual property rights, which, let me tell you, is not understood by most of the folks, even by the folks who are part of the stakeholder meeting, because they're just scratching the surface in terms of the understanding of what right is all about, in terms of the intellect, which is the creation of something which is giving rise to maybe a brand which is accepted by multiple candidates globally. We have been talking about the aspect of not putting a nomenclature of users, admins, and the right and the like. However, just use the word candidate, because candidate word, the utilization when you're doing your smart contracts, and particularly I'm talking from the standpoint view of Impala network. Even if you're doing on Ethereum, that is up to you, because it works fantabulous in both ways. It's just that on the Impala there is no gas fees, because Impala doesn't work on gas fees. It's the Ethereum networking is different. Okay, so the digital right management from the standpoint view of the digital content which is created at any given point of time, and particularly in the age of artificial intelligence. So actually, yesterday I was working on the AI part quite rigorously. I came up with new formulation around the AI part. Perhaps I would be discussing that tomorrow. I don't have the content with me today, but I did a lot of juggling in terms of the equations which can be created in terms of understanding the data with the small data models, because when you're working in silos and have those small models with you, that can be replicated in a very fast manner, and it's cheap to replicate it, because you are already calculating the error perhaps in advance. So the futuristic stuff is calculated in real time, and that's where the magic lies. Okay, so the digital right management is G06Q20 slash 1235. Then there is, if I have to talk about the fiat currencies, and if we talk about, or we are trying to understand the human created cash component. So if I talk about e-cash, e-cash itself could be involving electronic currency, and perhaps cryptocurrency is just one use case study that is not blockchain. I think we already talked about it, and most of the folks who have sent us a DM also understand that part very well, which is good. That is the private payment circuits which are developed. That is G06Q20 slash 065. And the good thing is, the one of the okay, I received a question on YouTube. This weirdest compliment received. I don't know whether I can call it weird or not. I don't have an answer for this, so no answer. Okay, um, coming back to this aspect, um, is private payment circuits is G06Q20 slash 065. We talked about the verification, we talked about the payment circuits. Let's talk about the protocols which are characterized by the use of the different handheld devices and different uh, using, I would say, different kind of wallets. So something is called as e-wallet or electronic wallet, um, where electronic money safe is kept. Like example could be Binance. Binance is something most of the folks are readily using it. I too also use Binance anyways. Is 6 not GQ? It's not G. Okay. Uh, okay, I have to rephrase this. This is G06Q20 slash 363. That is the payment architecture. Um, okay, so when we are talking about trade secret, how trade secret can be trade secret? Something which is not known to the public at large is trade secret. Um, so if you're able to create uh, I would say, an invisible admin to control the whole system. That is anonymous user system. That is G06Q20 slash 383. Um, then we have keeping log of transactions, G06Q20 slash 389. Okay, rules. We can have zillion rules around peer to peer, and perhaps when we are trying to understand just the blockchain part of it, that is G06Q20 slash 405. Okay, now let's try and understand this part. So we are trying to understand a simple NFT architectural framework. Um, as I said, when you're talking about NFT, these are non-fungible tokens. So in very simple words, non-fungible tokens are perhaps for one art. Say for example, there's a painting. You have, you say okay, and you actually code this and say that there are only 100 of this particular painting. Say for example, these limited edition. So whatever is limited edition in the brands, that is a kind of an NFT in terms of you can hold the physical copy of whatever the piece of art is, and you have a digital copy of the same in the online world. Now, this could be a good way to share royalty, because right now infringement is very rampant, and this is not a problem which started just 2 decades ago. This has been a problem of, rather, I would say, from the earliest understanding of what intellectual property rights is all about. Infringement always has been there in many ways. Many a times people know about it, but the good thing is, with smart contracts, if you are able to code the same, you are able to mitigate the risk of infringement. Okay, so in this particular case, we have inscription module, which is executed and operating uh, the module, which is a kind of UTXO. So UTXO or any of these modules, these are nomenclatures of the lexicographer. So a lexicographer is a person, or particularly folks like us who are into drafting and preparing the frameworks, particularly from the standpoint view of segregating the data sets in the best possible way. So this is one of these examples, that is UTXO. It stands for unspent transaction output. Um, then uh, we have a zero trust security platform also. I'm not getting into the detail because we can always have our own stuff. And then when we're talking about the contracts, so here in this particular smart contract, we have something called as um, HTLCs, that is hash time logged contracts. Okay, now the good thing about smart contracts, and I have been doing it on the Impala network for quite a while now, and the fantastic part is the use case studies are working, and I'm like, I just released one of the understanding, and that paper would be published by the publishers sometime from now. It's already at the stage of final QC. So final QC is the quality check, and for the month of December, I'm thinking if I can utilize it and have some use case studies around the AQI, that is the air monitoring and stuff. I'm not very sure I'll take up that task or not, but that is something which is hovering my mind right now in terms of uh, the current status of stuff which is happening in and out in Delhi, NCR, and the like. Okay, so this is done. Let's get to another result, perhaps. Okay, we are good with this. Next, we have, okay, okay. There's a lot of buzz around the forecasting stuff right now. When I say forecasting in terms of utilizing the AI modules to forecast how the market is going to, whether it's a bull market or a bear market. I the other day, I think few months back, I talked about a tiger market also, because now the good thing is, with the smart contracts in place, and the folks who really understand uh, the coding part of it, or coding a lot of things in terms of not the bull run or the bear run. So it is that was like a said rule which was not challenged by many, but now globally folks can see that it has been challenged, because somehow the cryptocurrency and stuff, and the stakeholders, the operators, the governments are chiming in, and the intervention is for real. So you are going to see a lot of chaos in terms of how everything is going to intermingle right now, because we talked about it that, so there is an online world, which is this is not an online world. This is like, I am in offline but online also. So there's an online world, there's an offline world, there is a quantum world, and the fourth quadrant, if I have to talk about circular economy, and I think I would be focusing on this part. I'll just write it down. For the month of December, irrespective of the fact I touch base on the air quality or not. So the fourth quadrant, I'm calling it as ESOP, because that's the business or the capitalist way of working. Because quantum has taken 1 quarter of how um, the reality is being forecasted at any given point of time, and it's very very evident in terms of the different kind of whatever we are seeing in the Milky Way, or whatever we are witnessing at the galaxy level, because there is kind of approach, obviously, in terms of, there's a stream called as astrophysics, and there's something called as astrology. So astrology, astrophysics, quantum, and everything, a lot of work has been done globally, and it's not that it needs, so there's a notion uh, with folks globally that if you file for technology, you need to have a certificate with you. The answer is yes or no, because it depends on what is the game plan as far as the business model around the same is part of the protocol. So, okay, let's try and understand this one. So we are trying to understand the classification in terms of how the understanding of data is done, because there's a lot of data with a lot of companies right now, but they have no clue as to what they need to do with the data. You can sell the data for a very less price. That is one way of, just earning peanuts. um, However, if you really want to game change the whole situation, you have to speed up the way the processes are being taken into consideration. Okay, so for the tracking part, we have G0 6Q10 slash 0833. That's the tracking. Then we have for the modification detection code, that is MDCs. Um, we have arrangement of secret or secure communication, that is H04L9 slash 3239. Okay, now business processing using cryptography is, I think we discussed this earlier also, G06Q 2220 slash 00. And then we have network security protocols using the hash chain, that is H04L9 slash 50. So what is happening here? Let's see. So I'm just trying to see the workflow. I'm only discussing the workflow which is of um, some value. Otherwise, most of the workflows are very redundant. I would say they are already there in the being utilized in different domains, in different sectors, and that doesn't uh, cut the way we are drafting the smart contracts. And the smart contracts is virtually based on absolute trust. I mean, that's the core of the smart contract or the blockchain, perhaps. Okay, destination, location. Okay. I think I want to end this conversation for now. I'm just trying to see if I wish to discuss any other application. Okay, validating asset destination in blockchain networks. This is interesting. Okay, machine learning we already talked about. That is G naught 6N20 slash 00. I think in few days from now I would be just talking in these classifications, which is fun. Yesterday I was working on a very interesting case, although it was from the food tech domain. Perhaps something to do with bioremediation and stuff. So yeah, it was good. Anyhow, coming back to this understanding, we have wherever you need to apply verification of the received information is H04L63 slash 12. Supervised learning, we talked about it, G06N3 slash 09. eCache H04L2209 slash 56. um, Payment architecture, keeping electronic money safe, G naught 6Q20 slash 36. So, uh, speaking the same language in a layman term. Okay. Okay. So we talked about data earlier. So this is the one of the examples. Just I wanted to give a quick brush up on this, and then we can continue with the other work we have been doing, and probably I'll come online in a while again once I'm done with that. So, um, when we are deploying any of the language modules for the transaction to generate, so there's a score. Now, score could be. I think yesterday I was working on something, and um, so there's in blockchain we call as a trust score. So that is one of the embodiments. In other embodiment, we have confidence score. So confidence score can only be orchestrated when the data is sufficient. So the determination step here is whether the data received is sufficient data. That's the question one needs to answer. Second is that data a real data or it's a synthetic data? Or it is being orchestrated data, because many a times um, candidates don't realize that although they are part of the experiment, they have no clue that they are part of the experiment at the first place. And once they have no clue about the experiment, or rather I would say the cognizance of it, then that has to be excluded as absolute zero, so that this cannot work there. So when we're trying to validate an asset destination, we need to have a very strong data set. We need to determine whether data set is sufficient enough to execute the language module. And this is also done from the forensic landscape point of view. Um, so once the confidence score is received, the machine learning model is also updated, and then um, whatever the decision is in terms of, this is in terms of smart contracts also. Since smart contracts also, this decision making capacity is in a very fast speedy manner, and that takes care of a lot of problem statements. So to solve the problem statements, you can utilize the models. The protocol, we I actually showed this experience to a couple of folks in the offline world, and they were like, wow, pretty, you should be making money out of it. I said I would. That's not the intent. The intent is whether what we have developed is able to solve the problems or not. So that's the pain point we are catering right now, and that's what we want to focus at least for next couple of days. And in 2026 we'll see how things pan out in terms of what UI we want to provide, and see for whatever aspect we want to solve the problem, because this can be utilized anywhere in terms of the problem solving approach as far the algorithm is concerned. Okay, thank you for watching this out. Any questions, the protocol, send us DMs, we'll look into it, we'll connect, we'll get onto a Zoom call or a team call and try and understand as to how we can work together in the near future. Have a great day ahead. Thank you for watching this out.